hand protection for electrical work.
Okay.
Specifically, we're looking at an article you sent over called Hand Protection for Electrical Shock and Arc Flash Hazards.
Yes.
By Hugh Hoagland and Zarheer Jooma.
It's a really good one.
Yeah, it is, actually.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is.
I mean, I think a lot of people, when they think about hand protection for electricians, it's just like, big, thick rubber gloves, right?
Exactly.
But it's clearly so much more than that.
Oh, way more.
So, like, what has changed? I mean, it's not like we're just throwing on some other work gloves and calling it a day anymore.
No, not at all.
Right.
There's been a huge shift from just basic mechanical protection to much more specialized designs that address things like electrical shock, arc flash, and even clean room requirements.
Yeah, it's like the electrical work itself has gotten so much more specialized. So it makes sense that the protection would follow.
Exactly, and that's where the standards come in. To make sure that these gloves are designed and tested to meet these specific safety needs.
Yeah, because the article talked about a whole bunch of standards like ASTM D120, ASTM F3258.
Yeah.
I think there were even some international ones in there.
Right.
It's a bit of a jungle.
It can be. It can seem that way.
Yeah.
But each standard has a really important role to play.
Okay.
So, for example, ASTM D120 focuses on classic rubber insulating gloves.
Right.
While ASTM F3258 is all about the protector gloves that you wear over them.
Wait, over them?
Yeah.
I always thought it was just like the rubber gloves were the main event.
Sure. Yeah.
Why the double layering? What's the point of that?
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
So the rubber provides that electrical insulation, but they're actually quite vulnerable to cuts and punctures.
Okay.
So the protector gloves act as a shield, basically, and provide that extra layer of mechanical protection.
So it's like two lines of defense.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And what's interesting is even something as seemingly harmless as moisture can be a huge threat to these gloves.
Really? Like just getting them a bit wet?
It sounds counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But wet leather can actually become a conductor.
Oh, wow.
Which totally defeats the purpose of that rubber insulation underneath.
So keep your gloves dry, folks.
Definitely.
That's the lesson there.
For sure.
Speaking of electrical dangers, the article mentioned arc flash.
Right.
And I got to admit, that sounds kind of terrifying.
It is.
What exactly is an arc flash?
So imagine like a sudden, intense explosion of electrical energy, creating this like blinding light and intense heat.
Yeah.
That's an arc flash.
Okay, yeah, so not something you want to mess with.
Definitely not.
So I'm guessing your average rubber gloves don't quite cut it for protection against that.
No, you need specialized arc-rated gloves. And standards like ASTM F3258 ensure that these gloves can actually withstand that intense energy.
So how do you even choose the right glove for the job? I mean, I remember seeing something about different classes of gloves.
Absolutely.
That's how it works?
So you're thinking of the classifications outlined in ASTM D120.
Okay.
And you have classes ranging from 00 to 4.
Okay.
Each providing protection against a specific maximum voltage.
Right.
So think of it like choosing armor in a video game.
Oh, okay.
You need the right level of protection for the challenges you'll face.
So the higher the voltage I'm working with,
exactly,
the higher the class of glove I need.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the protection against those arc flashes?
Yeah.
Like, how does that factor into choosing a glove?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So arc flash protection, that's rated separately, and it involves considering the potential energy of an arc flash in a given work environment. So choosing the right level of protection involves a careful assessment of the risks involved.
Okay, so it's not as simple as just grabbing a pair of gloves.
Not at all.
And getting to work.
Nope.
Yeah.
You need to think about the specific voltage you'll be dealing with.
Okay.
The potential for an arc flash.
Right.
Even the environment you'll be working in.
Gotcha.
And remember, these standards, they're always evolving.
Right.
So it's really important to stay up to date.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
This is a lot to digest already.
I know, right?
We've gone from the evolution of hand protection to these glove classifications.
Yeah.
And then arc flash hazards.
It's a lot.
What else did this article unpack?
Well, next up, we can delve into some of the unique challenges that electricians face in clean rooms. And explore some of the really cutting-edge innovations in glove materials. Trust me, you'll be amazed by what they're coming up with.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
So, clean rooms.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the first thing that comes to mind when I think of electrical work.
It's not, but they actually pose some really unique challenges when it comes to hand protection.
Yeah.
Because these clean rooms, they're designed to maintain extremely low levels of contaminants.
Okay.
So things like dust, microbes, even like tiny airborne particles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is critical for industries like pharmaceuticals, semiconductor manufacturing, even aerospace.
Yeah, so I can see how, like, big, bulky leather gloves wouldn't really be ideal in those kinds of environments.
Not at all, because the material itself could shed particles, and the extra bulk could make it really difficult to handle sensitive equipment.
Yeah, makes sense.
So finding that balance between protection and cleanliness becomes crucial.
So what's the solution then? Is it just like, oh, well, no protector gloves, you just got to risk it?
Fortunately, no. Okay. That's where the ASTM F3258 standard comes in. It allows for the use of innovative materials beyond leather.
Okay.
Which opens up a whole world of possibilities for hand protection in these sensitive environments.
Okay, so now you've got my attention. Tell me about these innovative materials.
So we're talking about things like high-tech fabrics, specialized coatings, materials that offer like excellent dexterity and grip.
Okay.
But without compromising that protection.
Oh.
The article highlighted knit gloves with palm coatings.
Okay.
They offer like a really snug fit.
Right.
Which is perfect for those tasks requiring like fine motor control, but without the bulk and potential contamination of like traditional leather.
Okay, but I remember, like you said earlier, that you don't want the protector glove to wrinkle the rubber glove underneath.
Right.
Yeah, so wouldn't a snug fit potentially cause that?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's an ongoing challenge.
Okay.
You're right, that snug fit could potentially lead to wrinkling, which, as we said, can compromise the integrity of that rubber layer, which is so crucial.
Yeah.
So it's this constant balancing act, you know?
It's like Goldilocks.
Exactly.
Not too loose, not too tight.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's another factor to consider, especially in those clean rooms.
Yeah.
Remember how we talked about sweaty hands?
Oh, yeah.
Can make those rubber gloves difficult to put on and take off?
Yeah.
Well, a really snug protector glove could actually exacerbate that.
Right, because it's just trapping the sweat in there.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so finding the right glove for clean room work is a real multifaceted challenge.
It is.
Yeah. And
there's an added layer of complexity here.
Okay.
Right now, most of the readily available gloves that meet that ASTM F3258 standard, they're actually designed for higher voltage applications.
Oh.
Meaning that they're paired with like higher class rubber gloves underneath.
Yeah. Okay. So what about the folks working with lower voltages then?
Yeah.
Especially in clean rooms? I mean, are they just stuck between a rock and hard place?
For now, it is a bit of a conundrum.
Okay.
The article actually highlighted the lack of like an ideal solution for those working with lower voltages in those clean room environments.
Yeah.
Finding a glove that offers adequate shock and arc flash protection, but also meets those stringent cleanliness requirements and provides the necessary dexterity for that intricate work.
Right.
That's a tough challenge.
Sounds like a puzzle waiting to be solved.
It really is.
Yeah.
But, you know, the good news is the industry is constantly innovating.
Yeah.
New materials, new designs are emerging all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic that we'll see some game-changing solutions.
Okay, well, I like that optimism.
Yeah.
It's exciting to think about, like, the future of hand protection in these like specialized fields.
Yeah, speaking of the future.
What about those international standards you mentioned earlier?
Right.
The article touched on IEC standards.
Yes.
I'm curious to hear how they approach things.
So the IEC standards, they're used in Europe and other parts of the world.
Okay.
And they do have some interesting differences.
Okay, like what?
For instance, they have something called composite gloves.
Composite gloves? What are those?
So they're pretty cool, actually. They combine the electrical insulation and the mechanical protection into a single glove.
Oh, so no need for the separate protector glove.
Exactly.
Wow, that sounds incredibly efficient.
It is.
Why haven't we adopted those in the U.S.?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Currently, composite gloves, they're not permitted under U.S. standards. But the article did mention that ASTM is looking into potentially incorporating them.
So maybe we'll see composite gloves making their way over here someday.
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how different regions, kind of approach these challenges of electrical safety and hand protection.
Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of situation.
Not at all.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about this double-layered defense of the rubber insulating gloves and the protector gloves, the importance of keeping them dry, the dangers of arc flash, the complexity of these glove classifications, the unique challenges of clean rooms, and even got a glimpse into international standards.
Absolutely.
And innovations like these composite gloves.
It's a lot to take in.
What's the key takeaway here for our listener?
It really boils down to understanding that there is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to hand protection for electrical work.
Okay.
You need to be aware of the hazards.
Right.
You need to be familiar with the relevant standards.
Yeah.
And you need to consider all the factors, from the specific voltage you'll be working with to the environment you'll be in, to make informed decisions about the right gloves for the job.
Yeah, and it sounds like we need to stay curious.
Absolutely.
And keep learning.
Yeah.
Because this field is constantly evolving.
Exactly. New materials, new designs, new standards. It's an ongoing process. So staying informed is really crucial for ensuring your safety and the safety of those around you.
It's pretty amazing how much goes into choosing the right hand protection for electrical work.
It really is. And I think one thing that's really stood out to me is it's not just about the physical protection. It's also about this awareness and respect for electricity itself.
Yeah.
It's invisible, it's silent, and it can be incredibly dangerous if we're not careful.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that.
It is.
When you're working with it every day,
No, absolutely.
It just becomes part of the routine. You don't really think about it.
Exactly. But as we've seen in this deep dive, the consequences of complacency can be really severe.
Right. Yeah.
So choosing the wrong gloves, not understanding the standards, or just not paying attention to the details.
Yeah.
These things can have serious implications.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about staying vigilant, right?
Absolutely.
Informed.
Yeah.
Always putting safety first.
100%. And I think that's a message that,
it
goes beyond electrical work, right?
Right.
It applies to any field where there are hazards.
Yeah. It's a good reminder for everyone, really.
It is, because we're all responsible for our own safety and the safety of those around us.
Exactly.
And that responsibility, it means staying informed, asking questions, and never being afraid to speak up if something doesn't feel right.
Absolutely. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree completely. So for our listener out there, who's probably already working in a field where electrical hazards are a reality.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you want them to take away from this whole deep dive?
I hope they come away with a renewed appreciation for hand protection.
Okay.
And a deeper understanding of the complexities involved. Choosing the right gloves, it's not just about grabbing the thickest pair you can find. It's about carefully considering the specific hazards, the voltage levels, the environment, the relevant standards.
It's about being proactive.
Exactly.
Not reactive.
Exactly.
And knowing that this isn't a static field.
Right. Absolutely not.
This is constantly evolving.
It is.
New materials, new designs.
New challenges.
New challenges,
all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So never stop learning.
Okay.
Never stop asking questions.
Yeah.
And never compromise on safety.
Great advice. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into hand protection for electrical hazards. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
Anchored in safety. The IP Utility Safety Conference is setting sail to Charleston, South Carolina, from April 29th to May 1st, 2025. Register today at utilitysafetyconference.com.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Utility Business Media and its employees. It is strongly recommended that you discuss any actions or policy changes with your company management prior to implementation.